Thank you very much, distinguished Chair. I didn't hear your last work as I was preparing my remarks. Chair. Representative of Palestine, first of all, I'd like to express the fact that I have always supported and will always support Palestine. We reiterate our love and our commitment to fight in this constant historical struggle which is Palestine's for its national liberation. We thank the two special rapporteurs and the Commissioner and Ms. Bhutto and Ms. Patel very deeply from the bottom of my heart. And I'd like to thank colleagues, representatives of states and the various organizations who have spoken alike. We share the same feeling and opinion on this matter, but the most important of all is that I have noted, as Cuba did when their representatives started to speak, that we all share the pain being borne by the people of Palestine, and not just in this room. We've all witnessed how all of humankind actually is sharing not just this pain, but also solidarity with Palestine. All of you have quite rightly pointed to the specifics of the current tragedy. But what we would like to emphasize is what Ms. Patel and Cuba said, and various panelists too. Before, though, we should recall that we must never forget, and Ms. Bhutto spoke about this earlier, we must never forget the vital responsibility of the United Nations throughout this tragedy and pain to support the people of Palestine. When the UN took the decisions it took, and that can never be forgotten, there is a responsibility incumbent upon the UN to find a solution so that this cannot continue as it has been happening. If we've seen so much suffering, repression, and genocide, which we can now see all over the world, we want to highlight two things. We fully agree with Ms. Patel. It's not enough to just condemn this reality and this suffering. Actions are needed now more than ever. In addition, there was discussion about complicity. Ms. Patel mentioned this. Others too, quite rightly pointing to the advisory opinion of the ICJ. And we wish to stress that above and beyond complicity, the essential thing here is to put an end to the policy of double standards. The Palestinian tragedy compels us to put these policies to one side forever in all multilateral organizations. And we say that because we are seeing it. If you take any organization where this situation is presented, for instance, where do we see double standards? We see it when some states agree or even are obliged to engage in a ceasefire, but they continue to arm Israel. they continue with political, economic, and military support to Israel. Some states have also said that they support the two-state solution, but they do not recognize Palestine as a state. They only recognize one state. And they say they support the two-state solution. We also know quite well why the Security Council has been totally incapable of using the mechanisms it has at its disposal under the Charter to put an end to this genocide. But we do have to point to something, which is that things are changing. We share the frustration that there is within the UN that what is being done, what needs to be done is not being done to halt this genocide. But there is a change in the air, I've noticed. The General Assembly is speaking out with greater strength and support every day, recalling the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, demanding that justice be served for the people of Palestine. And we see this, given that Palestine is in the room in the General Assembly and for all meetings. We are taking steps in the right direction. The European Union can no longer continue with this complicity denying the Palestinian people their rights. They must recognize Palestine as a state. We are quite sure that the more states recognize Palestine, it will become ever more difficult to violate the rights of the Palestinian people. I'm sorry for speaking at some length, but I must express our ongoing solidarity with Palestine. This is a national liberation struggle, of course. We are convinced that Palestine will be free. This is something that applies to people across the world, even in the United States. And with Europe, well, we've seen these double standards, those who claim to defend freedom of expression, but in their own country, they're arresting Palestinians or any citizens expressing their solidarity with the people of Palestine. These double standards must end. They're losing credibility, all of these people supporting Israel and standing behind them no matter what they say. It's also absolutely critical to point to the Security Council. The Security Council will be able to stop this only with great difficulty. And so action in that connection is important. We have the International Court of Justice. Nicaragua has turned to that court on a number of occasions, and we thank the court for all of its rulings on Palestine. Complicity has to stop. But what do states have to do? It's fundamental to stop the shipment of arms to Israel. This is something European states can do. Apologies, Chair, but we just needed to share that that's also a priority. The ceasefire is required, but we need to demand that there are no more shipments of arms to Israel.